Asshole Studios in Hollywood, California. You're listening to I'm an Asshole with Doug Bass. We've all been one, so let's talk about it. Now, here's your host, Doug Bass.
He's an asshole, sir.
He's an asshole.
Hey everyone, welcome to I'm an Asshole, the podcast. My name's Doug Bass. Thanks for joining us on the podcast right here. You're at the right spot. Don't worry. You know, you're here. You're here. That's all that matters. Thank you for tuning in. Don't forget to subscribe to us on Apple Podcasts, on Spotify, on Stitcher, Google Podcasts, wherever you can find a podcast, go subscribe to us there, please. We appreciate it. And don't forget to rate us on all these great platforms as well. Also, go to the YouTube channel at Doug Bass Comedy. That's where we have the videos of these shows up there, so you can watch them like they're a TV show, because not everyone likes to listen. People like to watch. I get it. I'm a little amped up right now. Sorry, I had like a crazy day or two in the past here. I was driving in Hollywood the other day, and this guy jumps out in front of my car, and he's dressed as Joker, like from the Joaquin Phoenix movie Joker. And he's just in the middle of the street, and like I just stop. And it's a busy street. It's on Vine in Hollywood. And this guy is dressed to a T like Joker. He's got a backpack that he's flailing around. He's arguing with some guy in the middle of the street. And then the Joker guy pulls out a gun and like puts it to his head. I'm not kidding. He puts it to his head, and he starts like yelling and arguing with this guy. And I'm sitting there in my car, and I just start filming it on my phone. And I don't know why. I mean, I should have been, scared shitless. There's a guy dressed as Joker with a gun to his head. I don't know if it's real. I don't know if it's fake. I don't know what's going on. But I sat there and filmed it, and I probably should have called the cops. Yeah, I didn't think of that in the moment for some reason, because I was like, either I'm going to film this guy blowing his brains out, he's going to shoot this other guy, or he's going to turn the gun towards me in my car and shoot at me. But none of this happened, thankfully. No one was hurt. But it was a crazy moment. I'm going to put my video of it up on the YouTube show. So if you're watching this, you'll see this as I'm talking about it. But I found out later that someone on Instagram messaged me and said that it's this guy lives in their apartment building, and it's a cosplay thing. He and his girlfriend dresses up as Harley Quinn, and they argue and fight like throughout the whole night, apparently, and it gets like really crazy. And the tenants are like fed up with it. They thanked me for filming this guy so they could show it to like their apartment manager and try to get him kicked out or something. I don't know. It was crazy. I mean, it could have been bad. Like, I don't know, cosplay or not. Like, if you're pulling out a gun in the middle of Hollywood, that's not a good thing. Like, fake, real, whatever, no weapons. Like, it's not a good time for that right now, because people are getting shot for stupid reasons, and I don't think that was a smart idea for this guy, unless he has some sort of death wish. I mean, he is Joker, so who the hell knows? But anyway, no one was hurt. That was the important thing. If you're dressing up as a movie character, just be careful. I know Halloween's coming up and everything. I mean, come on, let's be smart about this shit. Speaking of iconic movie characters, I'm excited about today's show. For those of you that don't know, my favorite movie is Back to the Future. It's my favorite movie of all time. I love the trilogy. I think it's a perfect trilogy. I love watching it over and over again. Today's guest on the show is actor Jeffrey Weissman. Jeffrey played George McFly in Back to the Future Part 2 and Part 3. And he sat down with me, and we really get into some of the gossip of the Back to the Future trilogy. His experience on set, him taking over that iconic role. I had a great time talking with Jeffrey. He's a great guy. Here is the interview with Jeffrey Weissman. I hope you guys enjoy. Hey there, I'm with actor Jeffrey Weissman. Jeffrey, how are you?
I'm probably like so many others out there now. God knows what the future holds for, my career. And there's a lot of anxiety.
But speaking of your career, Jeffrey, so you are an actor. You've been acting ever since college? Before college, as a kid? When did you start?
Probably right out of the womb.
Yeah.
I always wanted to be an actor. There was a little period that I thought about being a fireman or an astronaut, but
Interesting. Yeah.
I had grown up around actors, in that my dad's business partner, and he had private clubs where the members could play gin and bridge and backgammon, and so people like Omar Sharif was always at his club, and Don Adams, and partners with Lauren Green for one club, and I was heavily influenced by, I remember my babysitter kind of flipping out when we met Omar at my dad's club, and then we went to a movie that he was in, and watching her flip out again, and I was like, wow, there's power in there, and I was always kind of a ham comedian, center of attention, both at home and in school, and then when I started taking it seriously in junior high, I had a lot of ego training. Oh boy, talk about that. Yeah, we'll get to that in the asshole part.
Yeah.
So I really started taking it seriously, but my parents wouldn't let me go into acting as a career. They didn't want me to. They saw, at the club, the actors gambling and kind of always drinking and swearing. And
so so you studied up in San Francisco, correct?
Yeah, I grew up in LA.
Yeah.
After high school, they saw that I wasn't going to give up my hopes of doing it.
So were they when you decided to go to the American Conservatory Theater in San Fran? Are they supporting your decision to go study theater?
Yes, they finally gave me a little money right out of high school so I could get some headshots done. I paid a little fee to get on some sets because I wanted to feel what it was like to be on a movie making studio lot.
Well, that's great that they supported you, because I mean, my parents were the same way. I studied theater in Pittsburgh, and I had done theater in high school and all that stuff. And growing up in New Jersey, New York area, they were always very supportive of do whatever you want to do. We don't know how you're going to pay bills, but they were always supportive.
Because the parents didn't want me to for so long. Yet I remember my dad's mom, my grandmother. She would say, darling, if that's what you want to do, don't let anyone tell you otherwise. She was from London. And so it was really great for me to then use her in one of my key auditions in my career, when I auditioned for Clint Eastwood's Pale Rider, his Return to Westerns in '84. I had a lock of her hair in my pocket. So I could do a sense memory if I needed an emotional recall. Probably my most favorite film I'm in is a cult classic now called Corked, where I play an obsessive compulsive winemaker.
Okay, I'll have to check that out. I have not seen that.
It's very hard to find now. It's just before HD hit, and so it was a low budget indie sort of mockumentary, like a Christopher Guest, before Parks and Rec, or when television was doing a lot of that with Office and all, and I was able to, because my wife is in the wine trade and I'm playing a winemaker daily. I'd ask her before going in to shoot a scene, what am I referring to when I refer to this term Rhone Rangers or The Crush, or I also had the luxury of watching a winemaker that my character was based on do work during Crush before I went in and did the same business, so I could create that reality. And I would come in with options of ideas to improvise on or to add to the script daily. And the directors, I think 95% of the time said, sure. I think there was just once or twice they said, we don't have time for that.
Yeah.
But the rest of the time, I was able to add probably about 30% of my performance through improv.
That's great. That's always great. I always like, because I direct films here and there too. I always like to have a improv kind of, zoned set if there's room for it in the project. But yeah, it's as an actor, when you walk into a set though, it's like you kind of either got to know what you're getting into, know the director, know that they're cool with that or not, So Pale Rider. So was that like one of your first big deal movie roles that you scored?
Yeah. I worked on some big films. There were little bit parts, support roles. A Twilight Zone movie with George Miller helming with John Lithgow, recreating Nightmare at 20,000 feet. That was my first co-star role.
Right. Now, that must have been exciting, like you landing a first co-star in a big movie like Twilight Zone movie.
Yeah. Well, I came out of ACT in San Francisco State sort of as a hot item because I was asked by Martin Brest, the original director, to screen test for War Games. For the lead in War.
Yes.
And Dana Carving, Eric Stoltz, and about 6 of us tested with Allie that day, and none of us got it. But because of that, doors opened. I got into a lot of casting offices. A year later, I was up for playing the mouse in Lady Hawk. And once again, just before my screen test over at Warner Brothers, Matthew came down on his price and they pulled the plug. And I was like, shit. So I'd done Renaissance Fairs. I fell in love with that medieval script. I was going to rock it.
Yeah.
But so I did small little parts, and casting knew about me around town.
Right.
And, my hot agent, who was out of William Morris, New York office, she, with her little boutique agency in Beverly Hills, was a real aggressive agent. And she found out about the role that had opened up on Pale Rider because Chris Penn had turned down the role that Clint offered him.
Interesting.
Chris had met Clint at a party and said, I want to work with you. And Clint sent him the part of Eddie Conway in Pale Rider, and Chris threw it back. It says, I want to play bad guy. I don't want to play good guy.
Yeah.
And so they moved Chris to LaHood, the junior, and the actor who was playing Teddy Conway, the 2 dimwit brothers, they moved him to Eddie, so Teddy became open, and my agent was on top of that and got me in there, and I rocked it. And
you got the role, Teddy Conway, yeah.
On the airplane on Monday, yeah.
Yeah, that's amazing. So that must have been a great time filming Pale Rider. Was that a great experience for you?
It was wild. You get, first of all, I've been very fortunate to work in some great ensembles.
Yeah.
The ensemble on Twilight Zone was magnificent. The folks on Johnny Dangerously were a lot of fun. The ensemble of Pale Rider, right away, because my neighbor, who was a good friend, was friends with Carrie Snodgrass, I immediately struck up a relationship with Carrie. And Michael Moriarty was just a sweetheart of a man, and as was Doug McGrath and Chuck LaFont, all the really across the board planted cast, really very nice, wonderful people.
Yeah. And
there were some bumps in the road. You know, Clint's horse fell in, stepped into a gopher hole, and the horse fell with Clint on top and broke some ribs. And Michael Moriarty had 3 fingers broken by, I think it was Marvin and Charlie. The first fight scene when he goes to town, they were messing around, and he got hurt and quit the film. Carrie wanted to quit the film several times because she saw her characters more aggressive and more independent woman, and Michael and Clint fought her on it. So I'd have to calm her down. You know, we had some bumps in the road. We got snowed in.
Well, it's a Western, so there's all kinds of like elements that are like crazy on Westerns, I would think, right?
With the wind chill factor, almost the entire shoot was like 10 below. It was freezing. And we had a blizzard actually shut down production for more than 3 days. And you get a bunch of rowdy actors with a lot of per diem in their pockets. They start partying. It was crazy.
They hit up the saloon, right? Yeah.
The whole resort that we had taken over.
Oh man, yeah, I can imagine that being. I can imagine that being crazy. Yeah. So after Pale Rider, you take over the role of George McFly in Back to the Future 2, and then Part 3. So when you go in and audition for a role like this, obviously Back to the Future had become an iconic blockbuster at that time. So when you get the audition for the sequel, are you like, wow, this is a big deal?
Yeah, it wasn't a straight up audition.
Okay.
I was called first by a friend of mine who was an agent for photo doubles.
Right.
Instead, and lookalikes. He had a lookalike agency because he had supplied Kevin, Michael J. Fox's photo double.
Okay.
And he called me up and asked if I knew who Crispin Glover was. And I said, yeah, I did a film with Crispin at the American Film Institute back in '83, the year before he got the first Back to the Future film.
Right.
And I remember when Crispin lit up the screen in the first film, I was like, I know that guy. And I thought his work was just fantastic, as almost everyone else did too. And when this agent asked if I knew Crispin. I said, sure, I know who he is. Do you think you're the same size of him as him? And I was like, no, Crispin's taller and probably heavier. But what is it? Is it the Back to the Future sequel? And he says, I'm not at liberty to say. Well, get me in there. And I went and met with the ADs. And I told them about, my experience on other films and TV shows. And then they sent me to casting. Right. That's when they kind of were, I guess, feeling me out. I don't think they were auditioning a lot of guys. When I went to, was it Judy Taylor's office? There were a few other guys, but I wasn't even sure they were reading for the same role.
Right.
And we did the hanging the laundry in the backyard with Marty scene.
Okay, you would read that scene
from the first film. And I guess that went well because then I got a call to go to makeup and be fitted for prosthetics and then special effect body cast. And then I was told I was going to have a screen test. So I was like, okay, well, this is moving along. And
right.
I started hearing things like when Dean Cundy, the cinematographer, talked to Bob Zemeckis.
I'm a big Dean Cundy fan. Yeah.
Dean said, hey, Bob, Zemeckis asked Cundy what he thought. And he says, I think we have Crispin without the trouble. Which like, wait a minute, what is that supposed to mean? They don't have Crispin. And then my makeup guy, even Ken Chase, who got fired, he said, Crispin's out. You're going to be George. And I was like, how is that possible?
And no one knows anything about this yet.
No, well, obviously they knew that talks had broken down with Crispin, agent and production, but I was kept in the dark. And in my mind, Crispin, because his star was rising, great work on River's Edge and other films, that he couldn't get out of another shoot. Mm-hmm. Or he couldn't make the money. I couldn't figure out, and I couldn't fathom.
But he was demanding millions of dollars for the sequel, right?
They offered him, I think, probably $100,000.
Right, and he wanted Michael J. Fox money, apparently.
Yeah, well, I had heard all sorts of different things. I believe the truth is that he countered with $1 million, which I think Leah got that.
Right, because if you think about it today, in today's standard, if someone is in a Back to the Future quality movie and then they're like, we're doing 2 sequels, everyone would be getting at least $2-3 million, right? The lead actors would be getting that. Michael J. Fox and Christopher Lloyd are the stars, but everyone else, it's an ensemble, but they are a chunk of that movie.
Yeah, I think Chris was getting 6 and Michael was getting 12. Right. I like that, but the thing is, first of all, I agree with you. You would think that kind of money, because that film, is close to $1 billion in profit now. And the first film was the highest grossing film of 1985.
Absolutely.
So Crispin thought, he had some leverage there because he was integral to that first film. But as it turned out, he rubbed a lot of people the wrong way.
Right. He was very, from what I've read, he's methody. No, is he on set? Isn't it more like...
He has his technique. He wouldn't let anyone touch his hair.
Right.
He would sometimes... Bob Gale told me he disappeared during the shoot when they needed him. Some weeks that he was off, though. He and Leah had painted a painting that he brought into the set and insisted to Bob Zemeckis that he put it in the McFly home. And when Bob Z says, my art director's got this already set and I've approved, no, we can't add it. He blew his top, Crispin walked off in a huff. Things
like that as an actor, I can see where Crispin is coming from with certain ideas about the character or ideas and whatnot. But I also think in this business, you got to know where you stand at that particular moment. All right, you're not Tom Hanks yet, where you can say this or that or that.
Your agent may not be strong enough to play the cards right.
Right, exactly. You're not a producer on it, so you really don't have say on certain things. The Bobs are trying to reshoot this movie now. It's at some point. I'm talking about the first one. Once they got rid of Stoltz and whatnot, so they're under pressure from the studio just to get this thing done in time, and it's that's the last thing they need on their plate, I'm sure.
Yeah, there's a lot of different pieces of this puzzle, this kind of drawn out 35-year now history. And I'm kind of stuck in the middle of all this.
Right.
Because I had worked with Crispin and got his number to stay in touch and we're friends.
Yes.
I called him when I was up to be his photo double. I didn't know yet that he wasn't a part of the film.
Right.
And I figured they needed George in 2 places at the same time. That's why I was doing the makeup stuff. And he didn't call me back. He didn't call me back until part 3 had come out and he was ready to sue.
Right.
And he called me and gave me sad stories on how Bob Gale made him cry in front of extras, that he was mistreated, and how they, fooled him. They were going to pay him scale for the reuse of the couple quick shots of him that they were splicing with my work.
Right.
And which didn't sound fair. And also, in my mind, Universal, I'd worked for Universal in their theme parks for 15 years. And they always paid the rights when I played Stan Laurel and Hardy, or Groucho Marx, or Charlie Chaplin.
Right, you're dressing up as them. Yeah, that makes sense.
Because they were charging admission. Well, same thing with movies. I'm sure they're going to pay for Crispin the right to use Crispin's image to make me look like.
And that became a huge lawsuit once that happened. They used the prosthetics to put on you that looked like Crispin.
Paid him a licensing fee, and unfortunately they didn't, and they tried to keep me secret. Well, I'm very outgoing. Yeah. I'm trying to promote my career.
And you want the credit for you playing George McFly in the sequels. Like, why not? Yeah, exactly.
And I was kind of in obscurity for most of the 90s. People didn't realize that there was a different actor, a good majority of the people out there.
Absolutely. Here's the thing. Like, Back to the Future, the trilogy is my favorite movie ever, like, of all time. Like, the trilogy is just amazing. That's it. Like, I'm 9 years old when Back to the Future 2 comes out, I believe, and I must have seen it in the theater at least 2 or 3 times. And you're so good that I didn't know as a kid Crispin was not in that movie. Like, I was like, okay, like, and then I remember maybe a few years later, like when it was out on home video or whatever, there was that article that came out about Crispin Glover suing Universal, and then they mentioned your name, Jeffrey Weissman, playing George McFly in part 2 and 3. And then I remember reading it as like an 11-year-old or whatever it was, and I was like, I had no, wow, I didn't know that this actor Jeffrey was playing Crispin. Like, I had no idea, I'm a kid, but I had no idea. And I was like, you did such a great job, and the filmmakers, the way that they spliced everything together, I'm like, yeah, like most people would not know, maybe. Which is you doing your job cast as George McFly, I would say. Because the hard thing about this movie in particular is that it is a time, continuum movie, and they wanted to look as I didn't even know Elizabeth Shue was the different, Jennifer, when I was like 9 years old or whatever, and then it took me like, I was like, oh yeah, that's different, they reshot that obviously. so like as a kid.
That's what a lot of the fans that I've made friends with have had the argument, why didn't they just let you work without the makeup? And I was like, well, because you would have gone, who the hell is that? And so they backed themselves into a corner.
Well, especially when they wrote part 2, where they were doing the flashbacks and 2 George McFly or 2 Michael J. Foxes, and going back to the original Crispin scenes in the school parking lot. So yeah, like if they were using some of the old footage, and then with you, if they did not use the makeup, you would be able to tell.
And Crispin was slated to play Seamus in part 3.
Okay.
So he would have worked more. He probably would have done much more in 2015. That, when I came in, excuse me, in the 11th hour, and we were doing the 2015 McFly household stuff, I took that opportunity because they kept giving George's lines to Lorraine and to Marty and cutting, and I was like, I can
why not
do this?
Give me a shot.
He really he was probably in an insecure place with it, what have you, and so I would do what I could, improvising little things like how's Granddad's little pumpkin at the very first time you see George upside down, because Michael as Marlene in those hot pants, they were orange and he looked like he had a pumpkin butt.
Yeah.
So I came up with that. I came up with the Fruit Please. There's a scene that's cut where I'm trying to eat a banana upside down.
Uh-huh.
He'll keep slapping me on the face. It was funny stuff.
Now that scene in 2015 in the McFly household, that is your Jeffrey Weissman as George McFly. That is your chunk. That is your scene where you get to do the most with the character, I would say.
And I regret that they didn't make the time for me to come to table read or rehearse more on set before we shot, because I would have hopefully gained a little more confidence from them. I needed their confidence to allow me to,
right, because nothing was particularly written for you to say, you know, so you're kind of improvising and coming up with your own version of George or whatever.
You're right. You know, Crispin has come out lately, speaking of assholes, he's come out lately criticizing my work.
I did read that. Yeah.
Why are you doing that, Crispin?
He had said something like, well, you know, they hired another actor to play me, and I wouldn't have done it that way or whatever. Which, you know, it's like, and that's got to be frustrating for you, Jeffrey, I would say, because, like, you know, you're a seasoned actor, you're a professional, and, you know, you get this gift, this chunk of an awesome movie franchise to be a part of, and you're playing George McFly, and you are handcuffed in a way, in the way that you either can portray him, what you can do with him, what you can say, and that's got to be frustrating as an actor, I would say. Yeah,
the producers weren't up front. I wasn't allowed really to do much with the character hanging upside down. I did what I could.
Did they want to like preview like let's hear your George voice or whatever? Like let's see how you know.
No, we didn't really do that. So I was kind of on my own developing it. And I probably, if I had some test days where when I was up for the role, or when I got the role, the producers Neil and Bob gave me all of Crispin and Tom's and some of Leah's screen tests, makeup tests, and improvising around the McFly household, like an hour or more of stuff. And they literally had weeks and weeks, and counting their extol weeks, they had months to develop characters. Whereas I was thrown in the 11th hour to, you know, okay, I'm going to base all my
we're gonna hang you upside down, and you can do a couple lines as George, and we'll see what works.
And the George that I'm portraying is also the successful George.
Right.
He's a writer, and he's golfing. He's hurt his back because the car has fallen out of the sky on the golf course. And ironically, you know, all that I was told by a crew member that hanging upside down was meant to torture Crispin.
Yeah, I did read that as well. Yeah.
I needed to hang upside down. And some of those days were 19, 21, 26. We had a 26-hour long day.
Oh, wow.
Hanging upside down was, so much fun.
Oh, I'm sure, yeah.
But, I can't complain. The only thing I complain about, besides not having the rehearsal time, is I don't think I ever got stunt pay. I think I'm titled.
Oh, yeah. Under SAG, you should have gotten some kind of stunt pay. Absolutely. Is it true that like people would on like set, like the makeup and you know your portrayal was so good that some people didn't even realize that Crispin wasn't there?
No.
They
knew it was someone else.
Okay.
The makeup, if you looked at the young George makeup close up within 10 feet, or you could see it was odd.
How long did the makeup take to put on every day?
4 hours.
4 hours. That's not bad. It's not that
An
bad.
hour to take off at the end of the day.
Yeah.
They somehow wanted to skirt this issue, and so they clamped down on me. They didn't give me any photos to promote myself.
Yeah.
For probably, I don't know, 8 months or almost a year after we shot, and mysteriously, events that I was doing to promote Universal Florida through Universal, the plug would be pulled. And I was like, what the hell is going on? And little did I know is that there were powers working to keep me a secret.
That's crazy. So when do they finally give you like permission to be like, all right, Jeff, you can go promote yourself as George?
They never did.
They never did. So this, so you attend, like I know you attend a lot of fan events and screenings and all that kind of stuff. So that kind of stuff really didn't come into fruition until years after the trilogy was released, I'm guessing.
Yeah, I think in the late '90s, early 2000s.
So we're talking almost 10 years after Part 3 was released.
Yeah, the DeLorean owners sort of adopted me.
Right, and at that time, Universal didn't care. I'm guessing.
No, Universal changed hands, and
right.
everyone had moved on, I think, from the project, except, it's people who were dramatically hurt. And it also came out during Crispin's suit,
right,
that I had spoken with him.
Did you have to go to that or anything like that?
Yeah, I was deposed twice, once for 6 or 7 hours, and another time for another 4 or 5 hours.
God, that's horrible.
And so during that deposition, things came out that I had spoken with Crispin, and because of that, I learned several months later that casting was not considering me anymore on that lot.
Really?
And I was like,
really?
Yeah.
So they were blacklisting you in a way just because you got cast as
unfortunately.
Wow.
The boss I had when I was playing Stanley Laurel said Angela Lansbury worked with Laurel and Hardy as a child, a teenager, and wants them on this episode where she's on a movie lot, walking by or whatever. And they asked for him to supply a Laurel and Hardy, but not me.
What?
And I was like, fuck, I've been blacklisted. Oh my God.
Just for playing Laurel as one of the characters at the Universal Studios theme park. Like they didn't want.
Well, they wanted Laurel and Hardy in that episode of Murder, She Wrote.
Did actors think that you like crossed a picket line in a sense, like as far as like you played this role, like not that you did anything wrong, because there was, first of all, there was no SAG rule against that at that time. This lawsuit created that rule in the
Yes.
the end. But like,
it's funny because I've heard Bob Gale laugh at that rule, which is very unfortunate. But yeah, and I'm happy that SAG made that rule.
Yeah, I agree. As an actor, that someone should be compensated if they're using their likeness or whatever. But that wasn't around back then. And what are you to know as an actor going in for a big movie, like thinking you're going to be the double or whatever, you're taking over the role?
And I was led to believe, no one ever told me they didn't have his
permission. Yeah.
Permission.
Right.
And it was, it was awkward. I think it was awkward for Michael and Leah, and eventually everyone became very friendly. We became like a working family.
Yeah, and I see that now when you go to these events and stuff.
And the events, they've all become.
Have you talked to Crispin at all?
I've sent him messages.
Yeah.
Sometimes his dad responds. Sometimes
his dad responds.
Oh yeah.
When I first moved to LA when I was 21 or 22 or whatever, I took an acting class with his dad, Bruce, right? Bruce Glover, that's his name. I took an acting class there at his house in Culver City, and I didn't realize it was his dad at the time. And then like afterwards, I was like, oh wait, oh that's Crispin Glover's dad. I was like, okay, and he's a character as well.
Yeah, he's a character. In fact, when I was, his advice to me was to take the credit off my resume.
Really?
Yeah, I was like, okay. Anyway, so because my talking with Crispin helped him get his out-of-court settlement. It never went to court. He got $750,000.
Right, they settled. Yeah, not bad.
I kind of expected Crispin to at least send me a card saying thanks for your help. I got or something.
Yeah, you would
so
think.
I called him up, and he didn't pick up, but his message machine is him going hello. So I imitated. I went hello. I said, Crispin, it's Jeffrey. I thought maybe, you want to do a debriefing after all this. He goes, yeah, okay. I'll give you a call. And that's the last time I talked with Crispin. That would have been in '94.
Right.
90.
So, he kind of comes across as an asshole in a way, I would say. I mean, look, I think he does some interesting work.
When I worked with him at AFI, he was a very nice guy.
Right. And I'm sure he is, but I feel like
he's a nice guy, and he's just eccentric. And
yeah.
I think it's unfortunate that the debacle he got wrapped up in, he helped create.
Right. And the fact that everyone else on the set, was also having an issue with him in some way or another speaks a lot.
And it was very awkward too, especially in the scenes at the Enchantment Under the Sea dance and the fight that we had to recreate, because often at first I was referred to as Crispin.
Yeah, and that's got to be annoying as an actor, I would say.
It was. But it is what it is, and the benefit for me, like you say, I'm a part of one of the top 10 trilogies of all time.
Absolutely.
And every once in a while, I get to go to a fan con and sign some autographs and take pictures with fans. Hopefully, that's not a thing of the past. And
No,
I've made
those will be back.
around the world. I've got friends around the world because of my participation in those films that are very dear to me, and it's really the reward.
Yeah, absolutely. And the fact that you can relate to these fans on so many different levels. People reach out to you all over the place because you played George McFly, and you get to go to the events. I talked to Claudia a bunch about that as well. It's a lot of fun, I'm sure. And and it's always nice to be a part of something that is forever grained in all of our memories and hearts, I would think.
You said it.
Yeah. And that's great. And these fans that come to these events, they're insane. I mean, they are definitely have big hearts, and I'm probably one of them, but I don't go to the events really. But as a kid, I probably would be like, oh man, yes, absolutely. But
I have these Danish fans who actually did a cosplay of 2015 Old George.
Cosplay is huge.
The dad was the Ortho Lev.
Oh, really?
1-year-old baby had a perfect costume of Old George with the hair and everything, hanging upside down. For the photo, I think it was upside down for 10 seconds. But it's perfect. It's my first Old George cosplay. It was really great. I have one fan, Brad Fife, who cosplays Griff, who did a 3D printing of Old George. So I have an action figure.
Interesting.
None of the companies that make action figures have done an action figure for Old George, but the band did. And also another artist just did one a couple weeks ago.
That's cool though. Yeah, like people send you that kind of stuff. Like that's really enlightening. That's really amazing that people, they take the time out of their busy life and they create these things that are portraying a character that you portrayed on film. And that's
the hub is huge. The London Comic-Con 2015, which was the 25th anniversary of the first film, I guess.
Yeah.
And that was really the first show Michael came to as a guest. So there was lots of attention. There were 13, I think, of the cast members there. And we had contingents from the German Biff was amazing.
Oh, really?
Folk from all over, from France and Holland, the folk who came from the mainland of Europe and from England, lots of them dressed as the characters.
Yeah.
We had Marlene's.
That's fun.
It is great. And then I think the most rewarding also have been some of the events that are for Michael's charity.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. The Fox Foundation, right? Michael J. Fox Foundation.
Who were going back events that were in Los Angeles where if you attended it.
I did look at those. Part of me was like, I got to go to one of these things, like the Enchantment Under the Sea Dance or something.
All the locations that we recreated the Enchantment Under the Sea Dance where we shot it.
In Hollywood, right? I live right up the street from the Methodist church over there. Yeah.
And we had, I played guitar with Harry Waters Jr. singing Earth Angel, and it was really magic.
That's a blast. That kind of stuff is like the fact that you can go back to some of the locations where they shot the film, and then some of the cast members are there, crew members, whatever.
Yes, and then friends of mine, Terry and Oliver out of South Carolina, came to where we shot part 3 in Sonora,
right,
up in the foothills, and they did a almost a week-long event called Back to 1885, which was also a fundraiser for the Parkinson's.
I saw that too. That's an area that I have not visited yet. I'd like to go up there and check out that area at some point.
Oh, it's magnificent.
Yeah.
What is it, babe? Oh, and then my wife is reminding me that we produced a cruise that year called the Back to the Future Cruise to End Parkinson's.
Oh, really? And where did the cruise go?
We went out of Fort Lauderdale to Labadee, the island off Haiti.
Oh, yeah.
The Jamaica, a couple other stops. And I had 6 of the cast and crew on that.
That's awesome.
Unfortunately, it was my first time producing an event like that. And we didn't really break even, but we did make about $10,000 for the Parkinson's Foundation.
And you got the awareness out there. Is that something you'd think about producing again, a cruise like that, or another event?
Yeah, I just renewed the web addresses, so in case cruises do come back in the future.
Yeah.
The 50 fans that we had aboard, none of them will ever forget it. They had the
yeah.
time of their lives, because every day and every evening I had different panel discussions and showing the movies with live commentary, different events. We did our own Enchantment Under the Sea dance, and I put a band together where I had Don Folov, Mayor Goldie Wilson on bass.
Yeah, I've met him.
Mark McClure was Dave McFly on drums. I was playing guitar, and Harry Waters Jr. on vocals, called Mr. Fusion.
That's awesome.
It was a blast.
That's great. What do you think of the Back to the Future musical? Is that something? Have you seen it? Is that something you'd like to see?
I haven't seen it. I'm waiting for Bob Gale to send me tickets.
Yeah, exactly. Right. I mean, I was like, maybe I should plan a trip to the UK at some point to see it.
Everyone I know who's seen it love it.
Yeah.
And it obviously is really well done.
Well, I'm hoping it gets to Broadway. It does well in the UK, and then it makes its way over here. Because it does look amazing from the stills I've seen and what I've read about it. So.
And the cast looks fantastic, and they've really took their time developing it and writing new songs and so on and so forth.
And that's the closest thing that we can all get to a sequel, a reboot, whatever. Yeah, because that's not happening, nor do we want it to happen, really.
It's funny though. From early on, I remember the Hill Valley Telegraph was the fan newsletter, and I started getting that from the Back to the Future fan club in the mid-90s, I think. And then the leader of that has changed. Stephen Clark, who runs it now, is really terrific, who has the website. And often in that newsletter, fans would share their concepts for sequels, for continuing sequels and such. And there have been several fans who have written complete screenplays.
Oh, I'm sure, yeah. I think the only way that we could get away with a sequel or a spin, it would have to be a spin-off, something like how Cobra Kai has taken their story from Karate Kid. It would have to be secondary characters doing something, or we see Biff's world or something. I don't know. Or
Jules and Verne.
Yeah, Jules. I mean, they did that with the cartoon a little bit. I mean, something like that, I think, is doable. But as far as the Marty and Doc, I think that's done. I don't think we'll ever be able to replace that.
I have over the years, I teach acting and writing and directing, and one of my students wrote a fantastic script about these people who live in the woods who act out these fantasies every day, and during their fantasies, often one of them will drop dead. And without ruining this amazing script, I found that almost everyone, Chris, Leah, Tom, everyone's, I could cast almost all of the Back to the Future alumni in this film.
That'd be cool.
Even Michael have a great cameo as the first Doctor.
Right? Yeah.
But it's hard as hell to try to rein them in.
Oh, I'm sure. Yeah. Yeah. Everyone's busy and whatnot. All right, we're gonna take a quick break, and we'll be right back with Jeffrey Weissman.
Hang tight. We'll be back with this week's Asshole right after this. You're listening to the I'm an Asshole with Doug Bass podcast.
All right, we are back with actor Jeffrey Weissman from Back to the Future 2 and 3 and Pale Rider and many other features and TV guest appearances. Jeffrey, so this is the I'm an Asshole podcast. This is the part of the show where we dive into a moment in your life that you may have been an a-hole. It can be an isolated incident. It can be a chunk of time in your life. It can be you are one right now and you're dealing with it. Someone was an a-hole to you. Anything like that you'd like to share with our audience.
Great. Well, I got to play an asshole on The Man Show.
That's right, The Man Show with Jimmy Kimmel and Adam Carolla, correct?
Yeah, the Assholics Anonymous episode. I was the sensitive asshole number one, who actually cried during the therapy session.
Yeah.
Up there on YouTube, you might enjoy it. But I'm trying to think, I have so many different things that I wanted to say because I very unusual theme for a show, I have to tell you, Doug.
Yeah? Do you think it's a good theme or a bad theme?
Well, how's it been for you, and why did you decide that you'd celebrate the asshole?
Well, I think it's good, and it can be bad. But I think a lot of people are interested in coming on and doing it. I've had people that are hesitant. I've had people that have warmed up and they start with a small I did this once, and then they settle in, and then they tell me a bunch of things. And then after we record, they're like, all right, I need you to take that one thing out. Like that was too much. Like, and I'm like, see, you finally got comfortable. But they do feel like a pressure relief from them of telling something like that. And then we talk about it. We dissect it. Maybe we learn from it. We say, oh, that was bad, or I was a different person then, or, it's all in good fun. And we all have been one at one point.
It's kind of therapy sounding.
It is a little bit, yeah. I'm now a therapist.
So many different things that I immediately think of. The song "Broken Hearts of Her Assholes" by Frank Zappa.
Okay.
I think of the gangs that I grew up around. From not only the Crips and the Bloods, but also the surfer gangs. The Lords of Dogtown, who were assholes a lot. I mean,
did you come across the gangs when you were living in LA?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Well, yeah.
Were you almost initiated at one point?
No, I don't think I was. I was only abused.
Oh, okay.
I get cornered. I remember on the Palisades once, and one of these dudes sicked his dog on me and said, "What do you got in your pockets?" And I had tickets to a show I was doing, and he took all my tickets to the show. I was
He went to the theater.
Yeah, when I worked at Universal, I used to think, wow, there's cultural assholes.
Oh, yeah. Theme park, yeah.
I'd play beloved characters, Chaplin, Groucho, Stan Laurel.
Right.
I'd see almost regularly people from certain countries move children who are in front of them for a photograph out of the way, like they're nothing. And it really was shocking. And I have to say it was, I have to, my wife is saying, careful, but there were often Greek, there were often Israeli, and often Chinese.
Right. I've been to Disney World, Universal. I've seen that kind of stuff happen. I am aware of that, yeah.
And they're oblivious to it.
Yeah.
And I think it's cultural. I don't want to say that they're assholes. I think they're just oblivious to them being rude to the children.
Yeah, it's like people don't want to wait, or they want that photo with the character or whatever, and they're going to do what they need to get their kid there.
Validity. I know that I've had dear friends, who've had their hearts ripped out because their siblings have become assholes over inheritance.
Oh yeah, that's happened in my family with uncles and stuff like that.
And I think also people that I have come across who are assholes don't necessarily know that they're being assholes, or they think that they're justified in their actions. And
I agree. That's a majority of assholes, I would say. Either they're proud of it, or they're just like, this is who I am, and that's it.
I remember early on learning the lesson. Once I was in a show and there was a kid who unfortunately was very similar to how I was. He was obnoxious. I mean, really a pest and really out of hand and bothering everyone and getting away with it.
Were you a wild child as a kid?
Yeah, I was sort of following my sister. My sister was more of a wild child than me, and I follow along with her. But here I was probably 13 or 14, and this little kid who was probably 10 or so, 11 maybe, was really upsetting the entire cast and everyone. And so this older kid and I finally took it upon ourselves to rough this kid up.
Okay.
And I regret it so much. That was the biggest asshole-ish thing I could have done, but I learned my lesson. The director got wind of it and ripped us a new asshole.
How old were you?
I was about 13 or 14.
Okay, so you and this other kid kind of beat up another kid.
Yeah, that was an asshole-ish thing.
Yeah.
I don't want to say that I'm an angel. I'm sure I've come off as an asshole, and I know that, the whole thing with Bob Gale and Crispin Glover, I'm sure they consider me an asshole because I'm talking frankly about them being assholes.
But I mean, I don't. Would they consider you an asshole for doing that? I mean, I don't know. It's like you showed up, you did your job, you got hired to play that part.
It's interesting. I did early on in the Reddit universe. Tell me anything, ask me anything.
Right.
And I had a good percentage of diehard Crispin fans.
Yeah.
Come on, try to rip me an asshole.
And they were pissed at you for taking over the role.
Yeah.
See, that's a weird thing. It's like, I don't think, you as an actor, I don't know if anyone else has really experienced something like that. I mean, our people aren't going up to Elizabeth Shue being like, how dare you take over Claudia's role, or whatever, or someone else. What's another movie that someone has portrayed the same character in the sequel? I'm thinking
there's lots.
Iron Man, what's his name?
There's remember the lead in Bewitched?
Exactly, yeah.
And when the new guy came in, the ratings just went way downhill. So people get an emotional attachment. You've got a hero playing something that you adore, and all of a sudden they're not there, and you expect them.
Right.
You get disappointed. I think I can't say that the Crispin fans aren't justified because there's an emotional thing going on.
Yeah, but it's kind of like part. All right, so part two. Like if Crispin had agreed to do the sequel, part two, that script would have been entirely different. Do you agree?
Hard for me to say. I know that one of the reasons I'd heard that one of the reasons they didn't want him back is that he wanted script approval.
Oh, okay. Then yeah, that's a big no-no. Yeah, but it is. I mean, I can see fans getting attached to certain things, and I mean, I guess it makes sense in a way. But like for people to lash out on you, that's definitely them being assholes, I would say.
Well, the lashing out is from kind of both sides. I tell a story that Bob Gale insists is not true, and I was like, wait a minute, how could it not be true? It happened. Where I'm in the body cast to do the spin that was cut for Pizza in 2015,
right?
And Steven Spielberg came up to me and said, "So Crispin, I see you got your $1 million after all." And I was like, "Wow, what an asshole thing to say."
Yeah, like Spielberg is oblivious. He doesn't even know who was cast in the role at this point.
Of course he does.
Yeah.
He was just letting me know.
Just letting you know, yeah.
That, first of all, Crispin asked for $1 million, and I was saving him $975,000 or whatever it was.
Right.
So it was a very asshole-ish thing to do. And so I mentioned that to Crispin, and he let it out in the press, and Bob Gale has denied that it ever happened. I'm like, why would I make something like that up?
Bob Gale, I mean, I've met Bob Gale once at a screening of Back to the Future, and he seems like a nice guy, but he also is he's very obviously he's attached to the it's his baby, but like he also hasn't moved on from this at all. Whereas Zemeckis is all right, I get
gaslighting and unfortunate. It just is not ethical, not good character. I'm very disappointed. Let me just put it that way.
Yeah, no, I understand, and you have a right to be. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, it's like, I don't know. I mean, as far as you beating up the kid with the other kid, and was it a theater production? Is that what you said?
Yeah.
Yeah. What play was it?
It's called The Me Nobody Knows.
All right, I'm not familiar with that one, but
off-Broadway musical about ghetto kids.
Okay. But that's something that I think a lot of people can relate to, especially boys, guys. We've all gotten in like a little fist fight or whatever.
I was doing what gangs and assholes had done to me, and I regret it.
Okay, so that was you kind of encountering the gangs in LA that you mentioned.
Yeah,
taking a piece of that and retaliating. Yeah. But you do realize that it was wrong. I'm sure like we all were kids, when we're all kids, we're all all do asshole things. And I mentioned this to someone else that was on my show. It's like there's a point that we become a certain age where we realize that's stupid. Like, why would I do that anymore? Or like, why would I treat someone like that? And
yeah, and I've looked back at other asshole things I've tried. What have I done? I remember, it's like stealing my dad's car in the middle of the night, go out joyriding. That was an asshole-ish thing.
Right.
He finally busted me on
that. Is this before you had your license, or you had your license?
Oh yeah, no, they wouldn't let me get my license till I was 18.
Oh, okay.
I'm 16, 17. I'm like,
right.
I want to go out. Go out to a ride and then bring it back and tuck it away.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's pretty ballsy, I would say. I haven't done that. I mean, but I do have a couple friends that have done stuff like that. But like. Yeah, I mean, because like, who knows what could happen? You drive, you think you're invisible as a teenager, and then you get behind that wheel, and you're like, maybe I should take it back. How far can I go?
leaping off these steep hills, It's, woohoo!
Yeah, exactly. That is interesting. Yeah, I mean, because we do things to act out sometimes, especially as teenagers, just to be heard or get your point across or whatnot, and because we don't know our true voice yet, so the next best thing is to take Dad's car or pick on someone else. But it comes with a cost sometimes, whether you get busted or whatnot. But that's we all learn from it. That's the thing. If you had to pick one movie to bring to a deserted island, what movie would that be? And it can't be Back to the Future 2 or 3 or 1.
Damn it! The trilogy I was bringing out. I like. Gosh, boy, oh boy. I don't know. There's so many good films. I love Terry Gilliam's films like Baron Munchausen and Brazil. I love. But think
about it. You're going to be watching this movie over and over again on that island for the rest of your life, or however long you're there. It could be a long time.
Citizen Kane, Dr. Zhivago, maybe Russian Ark.
Russian Ark. I'm not even familiar with that. What is that?
It's a one-take film about the shot at the L'Ermitage. And it's a Napoleonic story. All
right, I'll have to check that out.
It's a nice long film that I could probably watch.
Right. That sounds like a plan if it's long enough to keep you entertained on the island. All right, I'll have to check that out. Russian Ark, it's called, you said.
Yeah.
All right, cool. And another question. So if Doc Brown was able to go back in time and fix 2020, the disaster that it is right now, how do you think he would do it?
Oh, he would not let Biff be elected.
There you go. Do you find that weird that Back to the Future 2 kind of predicted this Donald Trump-esque Biff thing, and now he is president?
It is. It's interesting that they modeled the character on that, and it's also interesting, that Tom Wilson wasn't the original Biff. I think it was J.J. Cohen.
Oh, really?
Who was going to be the original Biff, and J.J.'s kind of a perfect Biff because he's kind of a bullying kind of guy, whereas Tom Wilson is not so much bullying, but Tom had been bullied, and he used a lot of that to influence his character.
Yeah, Tom looks like a sweetheart, like off camera, like when I've seen him do stand up or whatever.
Yeah, he's a very nice man. He's got a big heart.
Yeah.
Although he's also been kicked around, and he won't go public with it, but eventually I think he will.
Right. Well, yeah, that's interesting. I mean, well, so the only way that we end this show, I don't know if you've listened to the other ones, we pretty much say that you state your name and then you say that you're an asshole. So I feel like you've really put yourself out there today, Jeffrey. I want to thank you for coming on the show and telling us your a-hole stories and letting us dive into your career and Back to the Future 2 stories and whatnot. And I think there's only one way that we end this show. I think you know what you have to do.
Yeah, I'm Jeffrey Weissman, and I'm an asshole.
There he is, folks, Jeffrey Weissman, and he is an a-hole. But he has redeemed himself today by coming on the show and talking about it with us. So I thank you.
Don't tell my wife.
What's that?
Don't tell my wife I'm an asshole.
Don't tell. Oh, yeah, she doesn't know by now. How long have you been married, the two of you?
Well, that show that I mentioned with Beat Up the Kid?
Yes.
We met on that.
Okay. Is she an actress as well?
No, she was on the crew.
Oh, okay. All right. And, well, it was meant to be then.
She was 12. I was 14, I guess. And we had a couple years relationship then, but it didn't last. And about 20 years later, we got back in touch.
That's great.
And we've been together ever since, about 95.
1995? That's perfect. That's great. Congratulations to you guys. When did you leave L.A. And move up north?
In about 02.
Okay. That's when I moved here. I moved here in 03. So, yeah.
Yeah, the traffic, when it became 24-hour and the agents were not getting me indoors, I was like, she's in the wine trade. Let's go move up north. And
do you miss L.A.?
Sometimes, mostly my friends and family.
Yeah.
I grew up there when smog was horrific.
Right.
And then smog lessened, but the population kept growing and the traffic was making me into a monster.
Yeah. Well, now it's very different. I mean, especially during this whole pandemic, I feel like it's going to reset in the next 6 months.
As soon as we get a vaccine, though, I'm hoping that, I'll get back into casting. I have some new representation down there, and
That's
if
great.
I can get more work down there, I've got my place in Santa Monica still. So.
Oh, you do? That's perfect. There you go. And are you working on anything currently that we can see you in or hear you on or anything?
I've done a couple of these Zoom productions with out of London. The Show Must Go Online is the name of them.
Okay.
And they're currently 9 plays away from finishing all of Shakespeare's canon. So a few weeks ago, I played Sir Toby Belch in Twelfth Night. Ironically, the way I found them, earlier on in the pandemic, lockdown, a Facebook friend of mine, Ian Drescher, had written a Shakespearean version of Back to the Future.
Oh.
And he had on his page that they were casting. And I was like, So I said, Ian, is it too late to be considered? And he goes, I don't know. Give him a call or write them. And so I wrote them. Ironically, Ian didn't know who I was, even though we're Facebook friends.
Oh, really?
When the folk in London found out who I am, they were like, oh, God, we'd love to have you a part of this. Who would you like to play? And I said, Doc Brown. So I played Doc Brown in the Shakespeare version of Back to the Future called Get Thee Back.
Oh, that's fun.
And, so you can see those on YouTube.
Okay. Get Thee Back? That's what it's called?
Yes. Get Thee Back to the Future and Twelfth Night. The Show Must Go Online. They probably have a Show Must Go Online website as well. And they're on Twitter. And then also early on in the pandemic, like very early on, probably about the second week or so, one of the Uber fans of Back to the Future, Kevin Bosch, contacted me and said, would you be in my segment? This producer is taking Back to the Future 2 and cut it up into 88 scenes. Mm-hmm. So he got 300 fans from 9 different countries to do a scene from home quarantine. So
I think I saw that. I think you posted that on your Facebook. I think I saw that.
Yeah, it's called Project 88.
Yeah. That was cool. Yeah.
Oh, it's a lot of fun to see, the creative people, some people using their kids or animation pets as the characters, and it came out great. There's one in the works right now where they're doing part 1, where it's all fans. So keep an eye out for that.
All right.
I did a little cameo in that one as well.
Very cool. All right. Well, everyone, be sure to check out Jeffrey Weissman on all these Zoom productions that he's doing currently during the quarantine pandemic. Check out Back to the Future 2 and 3. I know everyone's probably seen it, but if you haven't, rewatch them.
Yeah, and you can follow me on Twitter at JEF, just one F, Weissman, WEISSMAN. On Instagram, it's at Jeffrey J. Weissman. And then on Facebook, at Jeffrey Weissman Actor.
There you go. There's all Jeffrey's social media handles. Check out Pale Rider. He is in 1985's Pale Rider, which is a classic as well, if you have not seen that. And just look him up on IMDb and discover all the things that Jeffrey has been in. And Corked, if we could find that, I'd like to see that. That sounds very interesting.
I just saw a copy going for $300.
Oh, there you go. There you go. Venmo Jeffrey to get a copy of that. And that's about it. Jeffrey, I want to thank you for coming on today. I really appreciate your time and interview as well. Folks, be sure to check us out on YouTube at Doug Bass Comedy. The video will be there for this. Also, subscribe to us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, wherever you get your podcast fixes. And remember, don't be an asshole, but if you are, talk about it.
You've been listening to I'm an Asshole with Doug Bass. Please subscribe to us on all streaming platforms. Follow Doug on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook at Doug Bass Comedy. Thank you for listening, and remember, don't be an asshole. But if you are, talk about it. Have a good asshole story? Email us at doug@dougbasscomedy.com. We'll see you next time.